Welcome, and thanks for joining us. My guest today is Erica Fensom, the Vice President of Corporate Affairs at DocuSign. Erica, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Lots to dive into here when we're talking about all things HISPs. I think the one thing to get started with here is just recognizing the agencies that have been named HISPs. The reason why they have been named HISPs in the first place is because of the scale and impact of what they do. It's a big job and it's a big impact on the public. So just recognizing that as HISPs improve their service delivery, how can they ensure that their modernization investments continue to scale with that mission?
Investments can only make an impact if they're effectively scaled. And the reason that HISPs are important is because they play such an important role in delivering constituent-facing services. There are so many different opportunities to improve those points of connection with your constituents and to really hone in on how can we best modernize. We can center on one main thing that is in common, which is agreements. If you take a look at most public services and the delivery of those, there's one common thing in there, which is a constituent requesting a service or applying for a benefit or doing some other action where there is a form of agreement. And that's really one of the ways that agencies can scale, is to take a look at those common activities that happen across your constituent-facing services and really hone in on those areas of agreement to make that experience better.
Right. And what strategy should federal agencies implement to expedite the delivery of services to the public while maintaining a high level of quality and also efficiency? Because the volume of what agencies are being asked to do, that's growing every day, it seems.
It's incredibly huge, and you do not want to skimp on quality. In fact, those high impact times when you call them lifetime events, when a constituent is applying for services, that's where agencies should focus on, and they should focus on improving those experiences. So if you think about all the different ways that CX leads have identified how they're going to make the most impact, it's taking a look at those common occurrences and actually focusing on those areas where you can scale. There are so many different ways that you can bring in new technology to help address that problem.
As far as kind of those North Stars for agencies, what they need to aspire to in the coming months and even years, a couple things come to mind. 21st Century IDEA, that legislation has gotten a lot of recent attention, and of course recent guidance from OMB on this issue, making those services digital first, and everything that comes with that. So let's focus on the first part of that first 21st Century IDEA. How does that set a higher standard for accessibility of online services and just makes them better services across the board?
The 21st Century IDEA Act and then also the recent OMB guidance really helps to pinpoint where agencies can focus to deliver better citizen experiences and for our constituents. And it's interesting because I looked at the 2023 government-wide Section 508 assessment, and we still have some work to do. So they found that 3/4 of agencies are still struggling to meet their digital accessibility goals. So there's a huge opportunity to improve there. I believe that high-impact service providers are rooted in transforming our customer experience. And so this focus on the HISPs is really important. In fact, this is how we're going to be able to create that great digital experience for everyone, including people of diverse abilities. And DocuSign as a company, we're really committed to helping make that experience better, including for accessibility reasons.
Yeah, and when we talk about the technology space, it seems like agencies are using new and emerging technologies every day. And of course, this is a fast-moving space. But as that continues to happen, is there anything agencies should keep in mind as they start to explore the use cases, explore the pilots, and even later stages from there?
It's incredibly important to work with your partners to be taking a look at what's happening in the private sector space and bringing in some of those new technologies as well. I'm incredibly excited about all of the potential for AI and some of the areas where there is a lot of investment and a lot of really interesting pilots that are happening in government. I think it's important to take a balanced approach and to put safety and security first, as well as defining those experiences that are most likely to improve the most citizen experiences. So again, this is why this approach of looking at high impact service providers, I think, is really smart by the US government.
Yeah, and going back to the OMB guidance that we've seen last year, I guess it's really important to recognize that a lot of what we saw in there kind of reflects what had maybe been stalled in terms of progress with 21st Century IDEA. That's legislation that has been on the books for a number of years now. And so I think from OMB's perspective, a lot of what that guidance reflects is just that this is still an ongoing priority, that this is still an ongoing concern, and that they really need to see agencies step up to the plate and implement those 21st Century IDEA goals and targets.
And I think agencies are. So for example, we worked with a federal agency and they were looking to reinvent how they were using forms. And there was one in particular where it was taking them 99 days to process one internal document. And then by using an online form with an electronic signature experience, they were able to reduce that processing time down to 17. So we are seeing some really great improvements by using digital experiences and helping to, again, look at those areas where there is a lot of scale and focusing on those.
And you were talking about how we're in an interesting one foot in one era and one foot in another, that agencies are, kind of using new and emerging technologies, but still a lot of agencies, they're relying on some paper-based processes. What are you seeing in that space of weaning agencies off these paper-based processes and doing the kinds of things that they're supposed to be doing under the guidance that we've been talking about?
It's been really exciting to work with so many government agencies who are doing that. One of the other challenges that can happen is also human error that comes in paper-based processes. So there was one federal agency that we work with that was able to reduce the amount of errors that they had in their system by 90%, going to a digital workflow, which is really important to consider. So I'm candidly quite excited about the opportunity to keep innovating in government, and there very much are people who are wanting to make those experiences better. So I'm excited to see where things go in the next few years.
Yeah, better, faster, cheaper. That's always an important value proposition when you make that case to agencies. One thing we have heard time and again from OMB and other agencies that are really driving this CX change across government is how these experiences are often a make or break moment, that if the service is done well, that leads to a higher level of trust from the public in government services. And, if it doesn't go well, it colors that experience, negatively, and that, trust diminishes. What can HISPs do to maintain a high level of trust with the public as they go about trying to get these federal services, get these federal benefits?
Trust is incredibly important. It's at the nexus of experiences and security. And so no matter what area you're looking at, when you're delivering a public service, trust has to be number one and at the forefront. And so to build and maintain trust with the public, having a really strong customer experience is also part of building that trust. That constituent experience of, if I fill in my information, will I know that this is secure, that it's going into the right system, that I'll be able to get the right benefit that I'm applying for? All of that is elements of trust. And so when agencies are looking at expanding what they're doing around their digital transformation and identifying where do they want to invest for CX experiences, they should also be making sure they're working with a partner who believes trust is essential. So this is making sure you're working with a partner that has FedRAMP. DocuSign has FedRAMP as well as StateRAMP and Provisional IL4. There are lots of different ways that you can connect what you're doing with your constituents, building trust by making sure you're working with a secure partner, and designing a really good experience that builds trust along the way.
All right, all great points there. We're going to have more for this conversation in a moment, but we're going to have to take a quick break. My guest today is Erica Fensom, the Vice President of Corporate Affairs at DocuSign. I'm your moderator, Jory Heckman, on Elevating Public Service, a deep dive into HISP modernization, accessibility, and constituent engagement, sponsored by Carasoft on Federal News Network. Welcome back to Elevating Public Service, a deep dive into HISP modernization, accessibility, and constituent engagement, sponsored by Carasoft on Federal News Network. My guest today is Erica Fensom, the Vice President of Corporate Affairs at DocuSign. I'm your moderator, Jory Heckman. And Erica, picking up where we left off, I think a big theme of what we've been seeing with agencies right now is meeting the public where they are, that there shouldn't be so much administrative burden for them to, one, identify the agency, identify the right program office, and send the right form to the right person. That's really not acceptable in the 21st century. So to that point, what steps can agencies do to meet those constituents where they are?
Most constituents are used to having a seamless digital experience wherever you are, and it's been an increasing trend that most people use their mobile phone to transact, whether it's something from buying a coffee, I ordered lunch earlier today, to even buying a home or a car. Citizens and constituents expect that there will be a really good mobile experience, that it will be seamless, and that it will be easy to understand and navigate. So from an agency perspective, taking that in mind and thinking, how could I redesign this application process or benefit application or any other agreement that they may be working on and trying to improve the experience to really optimize what that experience is on mobile. We find in our private sector experience and with customers that when you send an agreement out for signature or for approval, you're much more likely to get a response, and you'll get a quicker response if you send by text. So that's another touch point that is important to think about as you're designing a service. How is this going to look and feel on a mobile device? What are the different omni-channel ways that this constituent might want to communicate with me? And make sure that they all work together. And so that's, again, one of the reasons why it's so important to connect those agreement services to your back-end systems, your CRM, and all the other different ways that you're connecting with that constituent.
Yeah, and I guess it's an easy thing to take for granted, but it's really worth mentioning that in a lot of cases, the private sector has set a higher bar for analogous services, I guess. Like, if you expect a certain level of service from your bank and being able to do things mobile, that, why can't that be the case for the IRS or similar financial type sector work? Can you speak to that a little bit about how just the public, because of those private sector services, expects more from the government?
It is really amazing how our expectations change, and as new technologies come in, we expect our government to be innovating and to be at the forefront of those experiences as well. So yes, there is a different level of expectation for government services based on what we're seeing every day. Again, it's the example of ordering a cup of coffee, which you can do online. It is absolutely possible to design those experiences in the same way for constituent services with the level of security and checks and balances that you need. So there is lots of possibility and lots of opportunity, which is why we're so excited to see the focus with the IDEA Act and the OMB guidance to really help spur innovation within these agencies, to say, let's rethink how we deliver these services. You mentioned earlier the importance of trust, and you did also mention that having a consistent experience is important. One way that agencies can take a look at redesigning their experience is having that one portal or a way that you can go in and access and then have one system of agreement. This is very helpful for constituents to be able to know, I'm using a trusted government service. I understand what I'm doing because it looked like something that I used before from the government. So it's not just connecting all these systems, but the design and the user experience is incredibly important.
Yeah, having that similar look and feel to most government services, most .gov presences out there. You hit on a point that I really do want to circle back on, the idea of feedback from the constituents, from the public, and that feedback informing improvements in online services. Can you give us some examples of how that's been effective, how agencies can take that feedback and turn that around into better services going forward?
I think the CX dashboard is a really excellent example of this. It is the government sharing where agencies are in their transformation journey and then allowing people to give feedback on their experiences as well. Transparency is really important as part of that trust piece. And so being able to share very transparently with constituents this is where we are, this is where we're going in our roadmap, and this is how we're innovating further down the line, I think is going to help constituents know and understand where you're going, and then continue to build on that great foundation of trust with high impact service providers.
Yeah. And can you give us some examples of how DocuSign has helped support HISPs as they try to do this important work, do this high impact work, delivering a high volume of services to the American public?
Yes, we've done a lot of work with different agencies. In fact, we worked with one agency last year to streamline debt relief eligibility in their application process. And so this is a guided eligibility process that happens very frequently. It supports over 19,000 beneficiaries, so it reaches a lot of people. And there's approximately $184 million in compensation payment. So this is a really important and impactful program. The HISP wanted to find a way to enhance the experience of this claimant participation group. And so the agency started with just two basic forms that could be digitally signed and then submitted to a portal. And then they were able to transform that front-end process. They made it easy for claimants to submit their applications and reduce their previous processing delays caused by mailing in applications. So imagine you have thousands of applicants who are mailing in applications. The agency had to wait for those to come in, then process all of this paper manually. There's huge benefits in terms of time savings, resource savings, but most importantly, the service was a better experience for the claimants. So that is really exciting. And by rolling out digital signatures, the agency was able to confirm the identity of the signer, ensure the services were going to the correct individual, and save not only time, but resources, and deliver a better experience.
No, I'd be remiss if I didn't spend some time on the electronic signatures, because that is, I think, a foundational element of the 21st Century IDEA Act, just getting agencies away from the idea of that wet signature on so many forms, but making it mobile friendly, making it more digital friendly. As far as compliance with that element of things, obviously you brought up this great use case, but are agencies, from your perspective, trending toward the right direction of making those electronic signatures the default rather than the exception?
They absolutely are, and there's more work to be done. So we're working with our partners and discovering more and more areas where there are forms and paper processes in government that could be done electronically. And if you think about, again, those high impact and frequent use cases that happen within government, it's applying for a service, it's applying for a benefit, it's also federal procurement. So a lot of the agreements that happen in government is also around procurement. That's another area where agencies are starting to now take a look and say, how can I make that experience better? How can we make that more secure? And then how can we make sure we manage those agreements after we sign? So electronic signature is still continuing to grow in agencies, and I'm excited that there is an increased adoption of e-signature in government.
And Erica, to go back to your map analogy from earlier in the conversation, I guess it's worth zooming out a little bit and recognizing kind of where we've been as far as the field of CX improvement and where we're going. Kind of where do you map where we are currently in that journey, and how much more work is ahead, and what are the key milestones that we've already kind of notched in our belt?
I see a huge amount of momentum ahead. I see agencies really leaning in and wanting to understand, how can I adopt these new technologies? And there are a lot of areas where it could feel like there's some internal hurdles. How do we change our policies so that electronic signature or digital forms and agreements are more easily accepted? The answer is, it's through making that decision. And I'm excited that the OMB guidance has made it very clear to agencies that there is a mandate for change, there's a mandate to focus on your customer experience, and there are resources to help you. So if there are anyone who's listening who is part of an agency and is wondering where to go, there are many private sector partners who are more than willing to come and help and share some of our experiences for how we can make that transition easier. I think we're in a really great spot, and the online GPS real-time data it's happening. It's coming soon to federal agencies, so we're excited.
All right. Well, we've covered a ton of ground here, Erica. It really impresses upon me how much agencies need to worry about or keep in mind when it comes to CX improvements. And we're really talking about HISPs who, know this stuff chapter and verse inside and out. But for the agencies that are maybe a little bit lower in that learning curve, what are the first things that they should really take that initial first or second step toward to, make the kinds of improvements that we're seeing going on already at HISPs?
The first thing you should do is take an assessment of your journey. So like anyone mapping out customer journeys, actually go through it and see where are the areas where there might be some difficulty, something where a user might not understand where to go next. Next is then map out where are there areas that I could make this smoother. Could I be bringing in data from other parts of my CRM or my systems to be able to make that process and benefit application quicker? The third thing is to then take a look at those experiences and identify where you could redesign it so that it is easier and more seamless, and look to your partners who may be able to help you as you redesign that experience. There are templates and other agreement processes that are available that partners such as DocuSign and Carahsoft can help you with. But really what's most important is to first go through that experience, identify where there might be opportunities to improve, and then tackle them one by one.
All right. Great stuff, Erica, but we're going to have to leave it there. I'd like to once again thank today's guest, Erica Fensom, the Vice President for Corporate Affairs at DocuSign. I'm your moderator, Jory Heckman, and you're listening to Federal News Network. For more on this discussion, visit federalnewsnetwork.com and search HISP.